Alright, and welcome to Greedo Plays MMA. It is our first video on this brand new channel, and we're going to be predicting UFC, obviously, every single week like we've been doing on the main channel over there on Greedo Plays. We're taking all of our MMA content on that channel and bringing it over here, so weekly UFC predictions, PFL predictions, every single PFL event, and I guess when the Global Fight League gets started, we're going to do Global Fight League predictions as well. On top of that, we're going to have more additional MMA content here on this channel, so I get to actually talk about more UFC and MMA just in general, other than just the prediction videos themselves. So stay on the lookout for that, and let me know in the comment section down below what other type of MMA content you want to see me make here on this channel, because again, we basically just get, the other channel is a lot of college basketball, a lot of NBA. This is just specifically MMA and everything related. So make sure to join us and hit that subscribe button down below for Greedo Plays MMA. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like to get this channel going. And of course, we have our UFC 313 predictions with Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev in the main event. Again, on the main channel, Greedo Plays, which will always be linked in the description down below, we've got college basketball, NBA predictions, and best bets daily. But now let's move on to the UFC and our first fight of the night here for UFC 313. There's 11 fights. And by the way, this year with the UFC, we're picking at about a 75% hit rate. So, doing pretty solid this year, I'd say. I would say MMA in general is probably my best sport in terms of picking. And here we go. We're starting things off in the middleweight division. I don't know why Diaz continues to get fights in the UFC on big cards. We have excellent fighters like Esteban Ribovic. I know he lost yesterday, but still, we've got fighters like him and Manel Kape fighting in the UFC Apex, and instead, Diaz gets to fight Jordan Santos on the undercard of a Alex Pereira fight. Don't entirely get it, but here we go again. The first fight of the night, Diaz and Jordan Santos. For Diaz, most notably, I think, unfortunately for Diaz, I think he's most known for just getting knocked out. I'll just be honest with you, getting knocked out by Joe Pyfer on the Contender Series, Mingyang Zhang knocking him out in Shanghai, China in his last fight. Again, after the Joe Pyfer fight, he was able to win back-to-back fights to get that shot in the UFC by beating Chuck Campbell and Bevon Lewis. Two guys who have kind of been around for a while in terms of the regional scene. Bevon Lewis, of course, a former UFC name. Diaz beats both of those guys by knockout, gets into the UFC, and just kind of just slings it with Mingyang Zhang, and just gets knocked out ultimately in that fight. Jordan Santos is a guy who's coming off of the Contender Series. He's coming off a unanimous decision victory over Will Curry, winning that fight by unanimous decision. Curry tried to take him down a lot, went 2 for 15 on his takedown attempts. Again, Santos was able to keep the fight standing and ultimately outboxed him to victory. Prior to that, Santos, again, not the best regional record and resume. I'm just going to be honest with you. Fighting in Thunder Fight against kind of unknown guys. 10-1 record as a whole, but nothing honestly that impressive out of Santos. This is a crapshoot of a fight, if I'm being honest. Santos is a -185 favorite. Diaz coming back at you at +155. I am going to side with Santos, the favorite in this one, just because Diaz is extremely chinnable. And I don't even think Santos has the best knockout power. We haven't really seen that one punch power yet out of him, but if we're ever going to see it, it's likely going to be in this spot against a guy in Diaz who is extremely hittable. Sure, again, he can hit you hard as well, but he leaves himself wide open to be getting hit at the same exact time, like we saw in the Pyfer fight, where Pyfer checked him with a left hook. Mingyang Zhang again eventually just found that way to the knockout blow early in the fight. Diaz is extremely hittable. He just got knocked out less than 5 months ago. I think Santos probably does find the way towards the knockout in this one, but I wouldn't bet it at all. It's just not. I don't like the fight. I think Santos wins, but he's extremely unproven. He beat a guy in Will Curry who was 12-3, a jiu-jitsu guy who just couldn't take him down. So again, obviously Santos was able to keep the fight on the feet and just outbox him, but I'm not impressed really with Santos. I'm definitely not impressed with Diaz. For now, give me Jordan Santos to win the fight by second round TKO, but again, I just wouldn't bet it. I don't know what the hell we're going to get out of either of these two guys, but we know, again, Diaz swings big and leaves himself open to being caught at the same time. So give me Santos to win the fight, but I'd stay away. We go on to our second fight of the night, and we go to the Ultimate Fighter winner, of course, in Marion Santos, as he takes on Francis Marshall. Santos, again, coming off of that Ultimate Fighter win, is a huge favorite in this fight. He is a -375 favorite against Francis Marshall, who is +290, obviously, here in the featherweight division, and we are siding with Marion Santos to win this one. Francis Marshall, very off and on guy in the UFC, 2-2 in the promotion so far, coming off a split decision victory victory in his last one, and that was a win over Denis Buzukja, winning that one by split decision. Marshall drops him in that fight, but two prior fights for Marshall, the two fights before Francis Marshall fight Denis Buzukja, he lost back-to-back to William Gomez, who just lost to Hyder Emil last night, and then Isaac Delgarian before that by first-round knockout. Marshall's just all right. I mean, he does hit hard for 145, but better strikers will go out there and outclass him, like we saw again in the Isaac Delgarian fight. And Delgarian just hits really hard, but Marshall couldn't get going, got stung really early in that fight, and obviously, again, Delgarian found his way to the takedown and eventually the TKO. The Gomez fight, that just wasn't great. I don't know. William Gomez is very unimpressive. I thought he was going to beat Hyder Emil, but of course, the one time we fully back Gomez, he doesn't win. It's just whatever. For Marion Santos, I think he's pretty solid. You know, we saw his Ultimate Fighting winning fight over Kenan Ofli, knocking him out in the second round. That was impressive. Santos in the Ultimate Fighter, again, winning back-to-back fights to get to the championship fight or the tournament finale. Did lose to Dan Argueta 2 fights prior to going into the UFC, but Argueta, of course, a good fighter, fought him for the LFA championship. I think that was in a main event in LFA. Yeah, not for the title, but ended up losing a main event spot to Dan Argueta. Bounced back, beat Rafael Barbosa by unanimous decision. Santos hits hard. He does. I mean, that's primarily where he's going to try to go out here and win fights with. Marshall, I think he's going to try to wrestle. I mean, I can kind of comp this fight to the Conor Matthews fight. Now, again, Marion Santos is much better than Conor Matthews is, but to the point, again, where Francis Marshall's probably going to need takedowns to win this one, because I don't think he's going to be able to swing with Santos. Again, Marshall does have power in his own right. He can hit you and he can surprise you, but I think by far the better striker is the younger fighter, the 24-year-old Marion Santos. Again, I think that Ultimate Fighter winning result was really great. I thought it was a very good fight and a very clean fight he had against Kenan Ofli. I really didn't let his opponent get going in that one, getting the knockout within 6 minutes of that fight. It was pretty dominant again, and he looked much better in that fight than he did in the Ultimate Fighter. Again, won both of his fights in the Ultimate Fighter against Edwin Cooper and Guillermo Torres, but Santos looked pretty solid in his first UFC bout. The only loss, again, on the entire record is Dan Argueta. I was a little bit skeptical of Santos prior to the UFC because before the Argueta fight, he kind of had some just 1-12 wins, 7-13. Those are the type of guys who's fighting on his record. But recently, again, Santos has been pretty good, and I'm going to take him here to chin Francis Marshall. I think he will get it done in the first round. It's the same kind of extent of Ozzy Diaz, to a lesser extent, but still, Marshall, he hits hard in his own right. He can drop you, and he can potentially knock you out, but at the same time, he does leave himself exposed to being hit. I think Santos, again, finds a way to the first round knockout. Last week we picked a lot of decisions with the Apex, and obviously there were a lot of decisions on the card. By the way, we did have Manel Kopp right on the button. It's third round TKO. But anyways, fight. This is a not fight night card. It's UFC. It's a pay-per-view card, obviously, with the crowd. I expect a lot of finishes. Give me Marion Santos again to finish Francis Marshall, and he'll do it in the very first round. We go on to our third fight of the night, and we go to one of the biggest favorites, if not the biggest favorite on the card. It's got to be Carlos Leal. In the welterweight division is a -700 favorite, give or take, against the veteran, the Great White, Alex Morono. Morono, 24-11 as a whole. Carlos Leal, 0-1 in the UFC, yet he is this big of a favorite, but it makes sense. He got absolutely robbed in his first fight in the promotion where he fought Hanat Fakhretdinov, losing the fight by unanimous decision. I do not know how you can score that fight for his opponent. Leal outstrikes Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov goes 2 for 19 on his takedown attempts, and yet they gave that guy the fight in Abu Dhabi. Absolutely ridiculous. Leal, I've been calling it for a long time. Leal's always been a guy who I've wanted to see in the UFC. Sure, he never won the PFL championship, but he always showed potential. He was 30 years of age, and in the PFL, he had only lost to one guy, Sada Bousi. Now, again, Sada Bousi's definitely past the point of he'll ever, get into the UFC because he's 38 years old. He's fighting Dalton Rosta. I did not know that fight's happening. Sada Bousi's going to be fighting Dalton Rosta in the first round of the PFL middleweight tournament this year. We'll get to that, obviously, when the PFL comes up. But anyways, Carlos Leal had only lost to one guy in PFL. He fought 2 seasons over there with them, made the playoffs both times, and lost both times to Sada Bousi, the first time by unanimous decision, and the second time by split decision. I thought Sada Bousi, honestly, won both those fights. But Sada Bousi is such a not awkward, but he's a very good technical striker. Say what you want about the guy. Sada Bousi, again, he is a PFL legend at this point. He's been with the PFL for 6 years, it feels like now. He's been in every single season that they've had. But Sada Bousi is a very long and lanky guy. He's tough to figure out. And sure, again, and Sada Bousi's not going to finish everybody, and he'll usually just point fight. And again, Leal just came up just short on beating Sada Bousi twice to potentially get into the championship fight. So I don't really put too much in the Sada Bousi losses. I've seen this guy go out here, and I get it. Ray Cooper III in 2022 is not the best version of Ray Cooper, but we saw Carlos Leal outstrike Ray Cooper, just dominate everywhere in that fight. And he's looked good. Again, he looked good prior to the UFC run, in between getting cut from PFL, I guess just not getting the call back for the Professional Fighters League, beating Marcio Breno in UAE Warriors, beating Manuel Mena in LFA, and of course the Fakhretdinov fight, he looked really good too. I think Leal's solid. I don't think he should be minus 700, but I definitely think he's going to beat Alex Morono. Morono has not looked good as of late. He's lost 3 of 4 fights, and sure, one of those is Joaquin Buckley, but the last 3, win over Court McGee, okay, and then back-to-back losses to Nico Price and Daniel Rodriguez. I don't even think the Rodriguez fight should have been a split decision. I thought Rodriguez easily won rounds 2 and 3, and I don't know what you're watching if you don't give rounds 2 and 3 to Daniel Rodriguez. You look at the Nico Price fight, and that was the fight, to me, it was on a main card of a pay-per-view, UFC 302, in Newark, New Jersey. That was the fight where I was like, all right, Morono just sucks now. He's not good. If you can't beat Nico Price in the big 2024, I can't pick you to win fights anymore. So obviously, again, D-Rod did to Morono what he was supposed to do in that fight. I think Morono's washed. I always had the mindset of Morono too, and that's why ultimately I picked him to beat Nico Price and had him to win the Court McGee fight, if I'm not mistaken. It's because Morono's a coach. He only takes certain matchups when he likes the matchup, so he doesn't need to fight, obviously. His main career is coaching fighters at this point, so he only steps in when there are fun fights for him and stylistically good fights for Morono. So that's why I thought, again, the Nico Price fight, I was like, all right, main card of a pay-per-view. You assume Morono likes the matchup and he knows he can win the matchup. Well, no, he just looked horrible in that fight. So I don't trust Morono to do anything. I think he's going to get chinned here. The last guy to finish him was Santiago Ponzinibbio back in December of 2022 at UFC 282. I think Leal chins him. I'm just going to be honest. I think Leal finds a way to the chin, and I think he puts Morono out cold. So it's going to be Carlos Leal to win this fight by first-round knockout. I think he kind of shows what he couldn't do in the Hanat Fakhretdinov fight, because Hanat was continuously jumping on legs, trying to take him down. Leal, again, was dealing with that the entire fight. I think Morono, we'll probably see him shoot at some point. I would be surprised if we don't, but I think Leal does. Again, if we saw Leal, Leal stuff 17 takedowns out of Hanat Fakhretdinov, I don't think, and yes, Morono's experienced, he's a veteran, but I don't think Morono's going to see that much success wrestling with him either. So I really like Carlos Leal in this fight. I think he's going to knock out the great white Alex Morono in the first round, and I think Morono kind of just, starts to slow things down with his professional mixed martial arts career. He's 34. Leal is 30 at the same time, but Leal looks better for his age than Morono does. Give me the favorite from Brazil, Carlos Leal, in his second UFC fight to finally find that first UFC win. Leal gets it done by first-round knockout. We move on to our next fight, and we move to a matchup here between Bruno Ferreira and Arman Petrosyan in the middleweight division. The odds are kind of interesting to me. I was surprised when I made this graphic that Bruno Ferreira is a dog in this fight. I get he's coming off a loss to Abus Magomedov, but I think we kind of forget how good Abus can potentially be. Abus's only losses in the UFC are Sean Strickland and Caio Borralho. Abus is not bad. So I don't think we should put that much into a Bruno Ferreira loss where he got subbed by a former Dagestani guy. Now, again, Abus's thing is, he grew up in Dagestan, moved to Dusseldorf, Germany, and obviously became a kickboxer, but he still has that Dagestani roots in him in terms of wrestling, so I don't think that loss for Ferreira is all that bad. And he's taken on Arman Petrosyan, a guy who's been very, just very off and on in the UFC. He's lost back-to-back fights. He's 8-4. In the UFC itself, he's 3-3? I mean, he comes into the promotion, beats Gregory Rodriguez. That was a weird fight. Maybe we should have known with Rodriguez fighting Jared Cannonier with his past of losing to debuting Arman Petrosyan. Petrosyan then loses to Caio Borralho, expected, right? Beats AJ Dobson, beats Christian Leroy Duncan, who really, I don't think CLT's been anything what we thought he was going to be since coming in from Cage Warriors, but I guess a lot of Cage Warriors guys recently have just been kind of fraudulent. Not Paul Hughes, though, in the UFC decided not to sign that guy. Anyways, Petrosyan loses to Adolfo Vieira, gets subbed in the first round. Then Shara Magomedov obviously does this double spinning back fist. Okay. For Bruno Ferreira, comes into the UFC, and he comes in and chins Gregory Rodriguez. So both these guys have beat Gregory Rodriguez in their first fight in the UFC, and maybe we should have thought better with picking Rodriguez to beat Cannonier a couple weeks ago. But Cannonier looks so, he just looks so old. Whatever. Bruno Ferreira, after the Rodriguez win, loses to Nursultan Ruzboyev. Ruzboyev knocks him out early, but then back-to-back wins over Phil Haas and Dustin Stoltzfus. The spinning elbow knockout against Stoltzfus was really nice, and then Abus Magomedov choked him out. Now, the wins for Ferreira, both these guys beat Rodriguez. Definitely Ferreira's win over Rodriguez is much more, is way better than Petrosyan's win. He knocked Rodriguez out in Brazil in his UFC debut. Petrosyan just beat him by decision in the Apex. But Ferreira's victories are Phil Haas, who's washed up, well, not washed, doesn't have a chin, and he's now in Global Fight League, if I'm not mistaken, and Dustin Stoltzfus, who's just, he's Dustin Stoltzfus. Petrosyan's wins are CLD, AJ Dobson, and then a split decision victory over Rodriguez. I mean, the losses in quality, I think Ferreira's losses are actually better. Petrosyan lost to Adolfo. Oh, no. Petrosyan lost to Kaio. I mean, both these guys are weird because they obviously aren't high level, but they've lost to some pretty solid guys, and they've only beat guys who are outside of the UFC. I'm going to take Ferreira here. I think he chins Arman Petrosyan. Yes, Arman Petrosyan is the better technical striker, 100%, but I do think Ferreira is going to blitz him in the first round, and Bruno Ferreira is a tough guy to get out of there early, and it only takes one punch from him, and I get it. It's sometimes that's hard picking a guy who you're just relying on his knockout power, because do I expect Bruno Ferreira to win a decision against Petrosyan? No. I don't really think he's going to be able to win the second half of a second round against Petrosyan. So our window in this fight, 7 minutes for Bruno Ferreira, but I do think he chins Arman Petrosyan. Petrosyan, he just is coming off a knockout loss. I get it. That was the most innovative knockouts we've ever seen from Shara, and then Magomed obviously went on to lose to Michael Venom Page after, but it is what it is. Petrosyan is coming off a knockout loss. We've seen Ferreira hit very hard. As long as Petrosyan kind of goes for it early, I think, again, it's going to create for some opportunities for Ferreira to catch him. I think the smartest fight Petrosyan can fight is to stay at distance in that first round and not let Ferreira touch him. I think, again, Ferreira is going to find a way to a shot because Petrosyan does seem to kind of crash in at times when he does strike, and that should play well into Ferreira's favor. Petrosyan's going to be the much taller guy, don't get me wrong. He's 6'3", Ferreira is 5'10", but I'm going to take the Brazilian to be Arman Petrosyan. Again, both these guys have just been very... I don't know. They've been very iffy in the UFC. I'm going to take Ferreira, though, to find the way to the knockout. I think he will get it done, though, in the first. Bruno Ferreira is the pick here. Give me the Hulk by first round knockout. We move on to our next fight, and we move to a matchup here in the flyweight division. It is a short notice replacement call here for Tsuruya as he is taking on the ranked 23-year-old Josh Van, but Josh Van will be the younger fighter in this fight because the Japanese fighter here in Tsuruya is 22. He's 10-0 professionally, and he finds himself as a plus 160 dog again here on short notice against Myanmar's Joshua Van. I'm glad Van's going to stay on the card. Originally, he was supposed to take on Bruno Silva. Silva had to withdraw from that fight. So, again, here we go, Van against Tsuruya. Van's good. He's 5-1 in the UFC, with the only loss obviously being the Charles Johnson loss in Denver. Since then, he's won back-to-back fights, had that brawl in the Sphere against Edgar Chairez, and then obviously beat Cody Durden in a really impressive decision victory over Durden. Was able to keep the fight standing for the most part, just outbox and out-kickbox Durden the entire fight. Again, that's how you're going to beat Cody Durden, who's a very good wrestler. Ferreira Tsuruya, 1-0 in the UFC, and it's a unanimous decision win over Carlos Hernandez. Yeah, he beats him. I wasn't all that impressed. He showed very good wrestling skills in that one. Carlos Hernandez, though, flipped the script in the third and was dominating on the ground against Tsuruya, but, I mean, at that point, it was already too late. Ray had already grabbed the first 2 rounds in that fight. I just don't know how Tsuruya on short notice is going to be able to beat Joshua Van. He was supposed to fight Stuart Nickel back at UFC 312, but Nickel got injured, so that was on the Duplessis Strickland undercard. So again, he's probably been preparing for a fight, but still, it's a short notice replacement against a very difficult guy to deal with in Van, because once Van does stuff your takedowns, he's tough to deal with on the feet. He's a very good striker. He's going to be in your face. For the most part, he can take a punch. I mean, Charles Johnson did land on him, but I'm okay with that. I mean, again, it is what it is. He got caught against a very good striker in Johnson. Again, both these guys have, a very high potential, but I do think Van, again, is going to eventually be a top, a staple of the top 10 for years to come. Again, he's only 23 years old. He's already 5-1 in the UFC. He's going to be in your face. And I just think, again, once Tsuruya can't find a takedown, what happens? I think Van, again, is going to be able to get in his face. I think Van is going to be able to use his jab. And I think Van, again, should eventually find those power shots. Will he get a finish against Tsuruya? I don't think so. But I think he's going to be able to win this one by decision. Also, again, Tsuruya did kind of, lag out and stall out at the end of that third round against Carlos Hernandez, kind of just accepted the back position against Hernandez in that third. And obviously, again, he knew he was up 2 rounds in that fight, banking the first 2 with the wrestling in the first and second rounds. But what's going to happen, again, when he's not on his back in the third round against Josh Van, when Van is pushing the gas and Tsuruya, again, is just trying to get out of there and not, again, get finished. I think it's just a very tough fight for Rhea Tsuruya. One, because of the way Josh Van fights, because of his defensive wrestling, and because of the striking he has and the pressure that he brings. And on top of that, sure, again, Tsuruya just took this fight 2 weeks ago. I think everything favors Josh Van. I think the real question for me in this fight is if Josh Van's able to get a finish or not. I'm going to say no. I think Josh Van just dominates a decision. If Rhea Tsuruya is going to win a round, it's going to be the first. I think, again, he's probably going to, I would imagine he'll go out here and try to just blitz Van, not blitz Van with striking, but obviously go in there and try to get a takedown early. But not many guys have had success taking down Joshua Van. Joshua Van has an 80% takedown defense rate in the UFC. Zhalgo Zhumagulov took him down once, Felipe Bunes took him down twice, and Cody Durden took him down twice. But again, my comp in this fight is if Cody Durden's going 2 for 8 on takedown attempts against Josh Van, Rhea Tsuruya is going to have so much trouble as well. The only round that arguably Cody Durden won was the first. He took down Van, didn't really do anything with that takedown, and obviously Van was the one doing more damage in that first. But after Durden got that takedown in the first, and Van just got to reset on the feet in the second and the third rounds, it was just over. Van dominated those striking exchanges. So again, if we're giving Rhea Tsuruya a round, it's the first, and potentially that does create for Josh Van to be a decent live dog. I don't know if he's going to be a live dog, but maybe even money at the end of the first round if he's down 1-0. But expect again Rhea Tsuruya to have his best round in the first, and then Josh Van just to dominate after. So again, I would expect Tsuruya to find a takedown in the first round. I'd expect Van to get back up though and dominate in terms of striking as well. But again, I think this is going to play out very similar to the Cody Durden fight. And honestly, you got to think, who's the better wrestler, Rhea Tsuruya or Cody Durden? Personally, I think it's Cody Durden. Durden's been a lot more tested. He's had to fight in the top 15 for years at this point, and Josh Van handled him. Again, I think Tsuruya's a good prospect, but Van goes from fighting a level of wrestler who's here in Cody Durden to Tsuruya who's like right here. So again, it's a step down, but it's a fight that Van needs to win to keep progressing in the top 15 in the weight class, and I think it should be a good victory for him. So I'm going to take Joshua Van to dominate this fight, winning this one by unanimous decision. The defensive wrestling is going to be key in this one, and Van will get it done. So give me Josh Van to win by unanimous decision. We move on to our featured prelim already. Are we already at the featured prelim? Wow. I mean, it's not that big of a card. We go to the heavyweight division. Curtis Razor Blaydes takes on Rizvan Kuniev. Yep, this is Rizvan Kuniev's first fight in the UFC, and he is getting to fight Curtis Blaydes on a featured prelim. I don't understand. Guys, if his last name did not end with an IEV, he would not be in this position. And it's not like he was some superstar in the PFL. I've watched Kuniev fight. He's not bad. He hasn't beaten anybody, though. He beat Hernan Ferreira. All right, guys, Curtis Blaydes would kill Hernan Ferreira. He would. He'd take him down, and Hernan Ferreira got taken down and dominated by Francis Ngannou. Ngannou's good, but that's not what Ngannou usually does. He got taken down and dominated on the mat by Francis Ngannou. Curtis Blaydes would kill Ferreira on the ground. How does Rizvan Kuniev win this fight against Curtis Blaydes? The only way he beats Curtis Blaydes is if he catches him, I think. But even then, it's just like, I think Curtis Blaydes can out-wrestle Kuniev. I think he can. Just because he's from Russia, guys, I don't think he's that good. He got popped for roids in the PFL, and look at him now. Just look at him on the screen. This guy's fat. He's an unathletic heavyweight. Curtis Blaydes, again, isn't a built guy, but he is an athletic dude. And again, I don't think, unlike guys like, Cito Gunn and Tom Aspinall, who really win because of their athleticism, that's not what Curtis Blaydes does. But Blaydes is not a slow heavyweight. He's not a big, fat Shamil Gaziev type guy. And trust me, we love Shamil Gaziev over here. The title run starts now. John Jones, stop running from Shamil Gaziev, man. He's scared of him. Gaziev's in the top 10 now. Which is absolutely ridiculous, by the way. I like Gaziev. Why is he in the top 10? We cut Rosenstrike, but welcome Shamil Gaziev to the top 10 of the weight class. Anyways, Curtis Blaydes, again, is not a fat, obese heavyweight. He can actually move, and he can actually strike. Now, who's Curtis Blaydes lost to in the UFC? It just in his career. He's got 5 losses. They are Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich, and Tom Aspinall. Rizvan Kuniev is not going to be the 6th. Guys, if Curtis Blaydes beat Jairton Almeida, who I think is going to challenge for the championship and potentially be the champion one day, I don't know if he can beat Tom Aspinall ever in his career, but I do think Jairton Almeida is going to be that 1B type guy in the weight class once John Jones retires and once the Aspinall reign officially gets going, right? I think Almeida is going to be that next guy in the heavyweight division for a very long time. If Curtis Blaydes is able to beat Jairton Almeida, the only guy to do so in the UFC, what the hell is he going to do to Rizvan Kuniev? Almeida is so much better than Kuniev. Again, Kuniev popped for roids after beating Hernan Ferreira. He tested positive for anabolic steroids, drostrostilone, metelenone, boldenone, and 19 norandestone. That just sounds bad. So again, coming off of, this is in 2023, he gets suspended for a year, comes back, the UFC gives him a shot in the Contender Series, he beats Hugo Cunha. This guy was not good, okay? I don't know where they found him. Actually, he was the LFA champion, wasn't he? He was the LFA champion. Guys, he was low level, I'm not gonna lie. Is he still the LFA champion? He is the LFA champion. But he's gonna fight a 5-1 Denzel Freeman, who's 33 years old. What is happening to LFA? Yeah, Isaiah Pinson beat Denzel Freeman. in PFL. I swear, LFA used to have, like, big prospects. They really don't right now. Anyways, like, not in all weight classes, obviously. Kuniev beats the LFA champ, knocks him out in the first round, but, guys, he looks worse since, of course, popping. He was the Eagle FC heavyweight champion. He submitted Anthony Freight Train Hamilton over in Eagle FC to defend his belt the last time before Eagle FC went under. He's unathletic. He's fat now. He's not on steroids. Curtis Blaydes should maul this guy. He should. I'm taking Curtis Blaydes by second round TKO. I think Curtis Blaydes is going to take him down and prove a point. Again, is Curtis Blaydes ever going to make the run for the belt? No, because Curtis Blaydes' entire career has always been centered around the fact that he can't beat the top guys. Whether it is Aspinall now, whether it has been Francis Ngannou in the past. Obviously, again, he lost to Derek Lewis when he was trying to, potentially a win away from the championship fight, or at least an interim shot against Cyril Gane. It's always been, again, he's been coming up just short his entire career. Do I think Curtis Blaydes ever wins the belt? No. I really think Aspinall is his last chance to get that shot. But just because he's not going to fight for the belt someday or win the belt someday doesn't mean he's not going to be the guy making his UFC debut in Kuniev, who took Hanan Ferreira to a decision when he was on roids. He looks unathletic now and he's fat. If he wasn't from Dagestan, he wouldn't be in this he wouldn't get this opportunity. He wouldn't. He'd be fighting Josh Parisian. He's not in the UFC anymore. He'd be fighting Hamdia Delawab, or he'd be fighting Dontel Mays on the undercard on the first fight of the night. But he gets to fight, Curtis Blaydes is not a legend, but all-time great heavyweight. Again, like, always a top 5 guy, not one of the greats ever, but a staple of the UFC's top 5 of the heavyweight division. Why does this guy get to fight Curtis Blaydes right away? Curtis Blaydes should dominate, he should out-wrestle him, and he should maul him on the ground. Ground and pound TKO win for Curtis Razor Blaydes. He'll get it done in the second round over Rizvan Kuniev. Let's go on to the main card, and we will start things off with a minus 500 favorite in Mauricio Ruffy in the lightweight division as he takes on King Green. Bobby Green, if you obviously didn't know, takes on Ruffy here in the opener of the main card. I love Bobby Green. Bobby Green is one of my favorite fighters. I don't like the matchup for him. Now, I do think people are going to underestimate Green in this fight, and I am going to take Mauricio Ruffy to win the fight by decision. I don't think he catches Bobby. Jalen Turner caught Bobby Green. I hate to say this. I think Ruffy probably knocks him out. I was going to pick decision. No, he couldn't finish James Lontop. Yeah. Nah, Ruffy by decision. Bobby Green should not be this big of an underdog. I think Bobby Green has a chance to win this fight. So since I made this graphic, obviously, Ruffy minus 500, Green plus 380. I'm now seeing Ruffy minus 590. Bobby King Green plus 420. I get it, Bobby Green's 38 years old, but he hasn't really looked 38. I know, again, the Paddy Pimblett fight pissed me off so much. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Paddy fan. It does stem from Molly McCann. I hate Molly McCann. She's going to get to fight Estella Nunes, and Molly McCann ruins the sport for me. But anyways, I thought Bobby Green is going to be able to beat Paddy Pimblett. Now, I think Michael Chandler is going to be able to beat Paddy, but, credit to where credit is due. Paddy does win fights that I didn't think he was going to win. So Paddy, again, has been overcoming odds for a while at this point. And again, I will give a lot of credit to Paddy the Baddy. He's not that bad, okay? I don't think he beats Michael Chandler, but there is a possibility that he will sub Chandler early. If he doesn't do that, I think Chandler's going to knock him out. But we'll get to that fight when we get there, when Alexander Volkanovski next month gets his title back. Let's go, baby. Anyways, Bobby, I don't know why he shot for a takedown against Paddy. The fight didn't last long, but Bobby Green won the first 3 minutes in the feed. There was no need for him to take him down, and that really annoyed me. It's just like, this is your biggest fight for Bobby. You're on a main card of a pay-per-view. You can end the hype of Paddy the Baddy, potentially get a top 10 fight after that, and you shoot a takedown after you were winning on the feed. Sure, nothing much was going on, but I thought Green was winning most of the exchanges, and sure, there were very minimal of those, but Green was winning, and then he decides, I'm just going to take down Paddy, and then he gets subbed and put out cold with the guillotine. It made absolutely zero sense. Again, maybe sometimes we need to put the IQ levels of the fighters on the damn tail of the tape. Now, again, I love Bobby Green, but what are we doing? Because Bobby Green at his best is great. You look at the Jim Miller fight at UFC 300, he dominates Jim Miller. The Grant Dawson fight, he knocks him out in the first when he was, again, a plus 400 dog. Bobby Green's more than capable of winning a fight against Mauricio Ruffy. He is. Now, again, Jalen Turner knocked him out back in San Antonio in December of 2023. It is what it is. He got caught. The referee wanted to see Bobby Green die in that fight, so he let him just take 10 unanswered shots to the back of the head, or not back of the head, but still when he was out cold is ridiculous. I hope that guy never refs ever again. But I think Hoofy's a little bit overrated, guys. I think he is. He's a fighting nerds guy, so again, he's hyped up. I think Hoofy's obviously the worst one of the bunch right now. Not to say Hoofy's bad, but, you know, obviously Borhaio is the leader right now. I mean, I would expect Borhaio to eventually get a shot against a guy like Nasruddin Imavov eventually, right? We'll see that fight someday. You know, I think the winner of that fight is probably going to get a chance to fight for the belt. So obviously Borhaio is their leader. Gene Silva's been great, obviously. He's going to get to fight Bryce Mitchell. I think there are definitely opportunities for Bryce Mitchell to win that fight, but again, Gene Silva is the presumed favorite of that one. Carlos Prates, again, is making his way and running through the welterweight division right now. And then there's Hoofy, who's very unproven. And let's just be honest, guys. I like fighting nerds. I think they're great. They're great for the sport. If Hoofy wasn't part of this gym, he wouldn't be getting this opportunity. Let's just be honest with ourselves, right? He's only 2-0 in the UFC. He hasn't shown the flash knockout powers that Gene Silva has. Yes, he finally needs Jamie Mullarkey, but he went 3 rounds with James Lontop in November. James Lontop's an 0-3 fighter in the UFC now, got subbed by Chris Padilla in the first round in his first fight, lost a split decision to Vasylev Borshev, and then went the distance with Hoofy, okay? Mauricio Hoofy was supposed to knock him out. Now they're giving him King Green because of, sure, these all-around success of fighting nerds. Prates, Borhaio, Gene Silva now. Gene Silva's going to be on the main card, and he's going to get to fight, you know, Bryce Mitchell after Bryce Mitchell's insane comments on the Arc Insanity podcast. But anyways, right, they are giving this guy a huge shot. And yes, I was impressed with Hoofy prior to making his UFC debut, right? Well, especially, it's just the fight in the Contender Series where he beat Raymond Magomed. Magomed Aliyev's the guy who came from Eagle FC, had a win over Impa Kasanganay in the past. I was incredibly impressed with Hoofy in that one. Up a weight class at 170, he was a dog, he knocked him out. He's come down to 155, and he has looked really good, but again, he couldn't finish James Lontop. I don't think he finishes Bobby Green. Guys, I understand the Jalen Turner fight's there, but I'm going to compare this fight to another fighter on this card that Bobby Green has lost to in the past, in a fight that I will keep standing on this hill. Yeah, I thought he beat Rafael Fiziev all the way back in 2022 or 2021 in Houston, Texas, Louis Gahn undercard. I thought he beat Fiziev. It was a very close fight, but again, I've always made that point that I thought Bobby Green beat Rafael Fiziev. But anyways, Fiziev was supposed to kill that guy. I thought Fiziev was going to win by decision. That's exactly how the fight ended up. I think the same thing happens here. Fiziev was supposed to kill Bobby Green. Bobby Green arguably won it. I'm not telling you he's going to beat Mauricio Hoofy, even though I think he's definitely playable at this line, obviously. But Green does, again, defend fairly well against shots. Obviously, he does the shoulder roll and whatnot. Yes, Jalen Turner tagged him. But Jalen Turner's got power, and Jalen Turner is absolutely massive for the weight class. Yes, Mauricio Hoofy's quick. He does have a lot of fun strikes that he throws and unorthodox stuff, but he's only 2-0 in the UFC, and again, he wasn't able to finish an 0-3 guy in James Lontop. I do think Hoofy's a little bit overrated. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Bobby King Green catches him. Like, again, the Grant Dawson fight. Everyone wrote off Bobby Green. He knocked him out in the main event, right? I think there is a definite possibility for Green to win. I don't think all of a sudden just because he got subbed against Paddy Pimblett means that Bobby's washed now. He's not. He was arguably beating Paddy on the feet for the first 3 minutes, and then he shot a stupid takedown and he got choked out cold. Again, it was a stupid game plan. I don't know who told him to do that. But I think Bobby fights a very competitive fight in this one. I'm obviously hoping Bobby wins it. And yes, Hoofy's got power, but at the same time, guys, same time, Hoofy has not really been tested all that much. The only time he lost a fight was to Manuel Sosa, who's a fighter who was in Bellator, lost a fight to Archie Colgan last year. I don't know if Sosa's still with the Bellator/PFL brand. Anyways, that one fight that Hoofy did lose was back in 2019. Manuel Sosa knocked him out in the second round, right? I think there's a chance for King Green to catch Hoofy. And at the same time, if King Green gets this fight deep in the fight and makes Hoofy fight a firefight with him, we'll see. We'll see. Because, yeah, Hoofy did more damage against James Lontop, but don't forget, guys, in the third round, James Lontop won that third. Yeah, Hoofy won the first two. The first round was close. Hoofy definitely won the second because he dropped Lontop, but I don't know. I think we are overselling Hoofy a little bit. I don't think he's as good as the other three guys in the Fighting Nerds. I think Borhaio's obviously the best. I think Prates, then Silva. Maybe Silva's better than Prates. I don't know. We'll see. They're both good. And then I think Hoofy is a distant fourth, though. I think he is. Again, we'll see. If he can knock out Green, I'll give him a lot of credit, but I think he's being a little bit overhyped right now. I think he beats Bobby Green, but I think it's a really close fight. I think, again, it goes a lot like the Fiziev fight. I think it's going to be second round swing round, first round Hoofy, second round swing, third round Green. So I'm going to take Hoofy to win a close decision. Again, I don't mind Bobby Green at the line. If you want to play it, I don't mind it. But I'm going to take Mauricio Hoofy to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think Bobby Green has a much better chance, though, than people are giving him in this one. Move on to our next fight, and we go to our only women's fight of the night here in the strawweight division. We have got a top 5 fight in the weight class, or with the winner being in the top 5. 2 Brazilian fighters. Amanda Lemos takes on Yasmin Lucindo. Again, I always look at Yasmin Lucindo, and I always go back to that San Diego fight where she fought Yasmin Yayargi. It was a fight the UFC put on the main card of main card of the fight night. It was the fight of the night, or didn't win fight of the night, but it was a good fight, and Dana was really impressed with both those fighters. They're both really young, and Yayargi wins. But what's happened since then? Well, Lucindo's been the star. Yayargi's been very disappointing in her UFC run, and Lucindo's won 4 in a row. A win over Brogan Walker, who that wasn't very good. A Polyana Viana submission win. Yes, Viana's extremely submittable, but she beat her. A decision victory over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and then a win over Marina Rodriguez in her last one by split decision. Yes, Lucindo is barely getting by in some of these fights, but now she takes on Amanda Lemos. I think it's an extremely winnable fight. Guys, Lemos looked horrible against Vina Jandiroba. I felt really good about Lemos beating Jandiroba, but all of a sudden, Lemos looked really washed. And now the full blueprint is out there to beat Amanda Lemos. Wrestle her. She is very bad defensively. Mackenzie Dern couldn't take her down, and that's why Mackenzie Dern sucks at fighting. Now, again, we picked Lemos to win that fight, but I think Dern's the absolute worst. I'll just be honest with you. She's so crappy at fighting, man. Does she have a fight? No, she beat Ribas, because Ribas sucks too. Like, but Lemos lost to Vina Jandiroba. Who's probably getting the next title shot. Oh no, they're gonna let Zhang Weili go up. But Jandiroba is gonna fight Yao Zhen now, and the winner is gonna fight for the belt. Okay. Jandiroba took down Lemos and just dominated her down there. Again, the blueprint is there to beat Lemos, so why wouldn't let Lucindo do the same exact thing? And oh, how did Lucindo beat Marina Rodriguez? She won most of those rounds by securing a takedown in every single round. This should be easy money for Yasmin Lucindo. If her camp and if she herself has a brain, they will easily game plan and win this fight against Amanda Lemos. Because again, it is so easy to beat Amanda Lemos. Take her down. She's a good striker for the weight class. I'll give her credit for that. But defensively on the mat, she's horrible. I don't know if Lucindo is going to get a submission because we haven't really seen her do that. And Lucindo herself has been sub 3 times, but all those losses came back when she was very green in her career back in 2017 and 2018. You know, her only loss in the UFC and her only loss since 2019, of course, is that Yasmin Yayargi unanimous decision stand-up war. Lucindo submitted Polyana Viana. I'm going to take her to sub Lemos. Not that many people are picking it. I mean, I'm looking at Topology. 66% of voters are picking Lucindo, 89% by decision, 3% by submission. I'm going to take Lucindo by sub here. I'm going to take Lucindo's second round submission. I think she picks up the biggest win of her career. Yeah, I think so. Man, she's 14 years younger than Amanda Lemos. She's 23, guys. Lucindo, she wins this fight. She's a fight away from the belt, which is crazy, you know? Maybe they do give her the winner of Jandiroba and Yan Zhan now. And they probably do, because who the hell wants to watch Vina Jandiroba in a UFC title fight? And Zhao Naun, that's only one win after losing to Zhang Weili, and Zhang Weili is going to go up anyway, so they need something else for the weight class. So yeah, honestly, I think Lucindo is going to work her way into a title eliminator next. Give me Lucindo versus the winner of Yao Zhenan and Jandiroba next. Probably that screams Apex main event, but it's fine. Or put it as a co-main of a fight night with the crowd. I'd be okay with that, because that's a title eliminator. Book it for the summer. That'd be great. I think Lucindo, again, she's going to pick up the best win of her career. She'll take down Lemos, and she'll find a way to a submission. Obviously, again, Lemos is better than Polyana Viana. Polyana Viana, good offensive jiu-jitsu and good grappling, but defensively, yes, she is very capable of being subbed in her own right. But Lemos at the same time has been sub time in and time out. I think Lucindo is going to find a way to a submission. We saw Zhang Weili dominate Lemos on the ground. Obviously, we saw Jandiroba kill Lemos on the ground as well. Who's to say the fighter who's 23 years old and 14 years younger than Lemos doesn't do the same exact thing? And Lemos, sure, she has power, but it's not to the point where she's just going to catch you with one shot and put you down. I saw Lucindo go into an all-out war with Yayargi, take some big shots, and she was okay. I expect Lucindo to dominate this fight at -130. I really like it. I usually don't really like women's MMA picks, but this is one of them. Yasmin Lucindo dominates Amanda Lemos on the ground. Lemos, pack it up. Time for the Global Fight League, because Yasmin Lucindo is going to win the fight by second round submission. We go on to the featured fight of the night, and we go to a great fight In the lightweight division, 14-8 Jalen Turner, but again, we'll talk about his record. There's a reason he's 14-8. Takes on Ignacio Bahamondes. The biggest fight in the career and the biggest opportunity of the Chilean fighter and the only Chilean fighter in the UFC, and Bahamondes. After back-to-back victories over Christos Giagos and Manuel Torres, Bahamondes gets a shot here on a main card of a pay-per-view for the second consecutive time after his win on Noche against the Tarantula Jalen Turner. And Turner is usually always the bigger guy in his fights because he's 6'3" and he's so long for the weight class at 155 pounds. But Bahamondes in his own right 6'3". This is going to be interesting. Jalen Turner has lost 3 of 4 going into this fight. Sure, they've given Jalen Turner some huge opportunities. They've given him some big names. After his submission victory in the first round on the featured fight of International Fight Week in 2022 over Brad Riddell, they gave him Mateus Gamrot, lost the fight by split decision, arguably won. I thought he beat Dan Hooker by split decision, but whatever. Beat King Green, and then should have beat Renato Moicano. Knocks down Moicano, kind of knocks him out. Walks away because he wants his big, 100K bonus on UFC 300. Comes back, eventually gets submitted by Renato Moicano. So now Jalen Turner could have potentially won 4 in a row looking at a top 5 fight, is now fighting unranked Ignacio Bahamondes, trying to fight off his ranking right now. That's tough. And this is a very tough stylistic fight for Jalen Turner. Yes, Jalen Turner hits hard, but Ignacio Bahamondes is very good at the same time. I just don't know if it's too much, though, for Bahamondes right now. And I think Jalen Turner's jiu-jitsu and grappling can make this fight extremely tough on Bahamondes as well. We will see. Again, I don't know, but the fight I do look back to is Bahamondes' last loss. Ludovic Klein's a good fighter. He's not a guy who we're going to expect to be in the top 10. He's a good, undercard guy who can win fights, right? Ludovic Klein, is he still coming off the AJ Cunningham win, or am I mistaken? I might be forgetting a Ludovic Klein fight. He beat Roosevelt Roberts. Oh, he beat Thiago Moises too. Honestly, Klein should be getting a top 15 fight. Anyways, Ludovic Klein dominated Ignacio Bahamondes on the ground. I don't know if Jalen Turner has the same, I don't think he's got better pure wrestling as Klein, who again is a very good all-around wrestler, but Klein dominated in that fight on the ground, didn't let Bahamondes really do anything on the feet, and kept, again, Bahamondes guessing because of the wrestling work that Klein was able to put in. I think Jalen Turner, I think he's more than capable of beating Bahamondes on the feet, 100%. But at the same time, I do think Turner has some capability of winning the fight on the ground, too. I just think, again, for Bahamondes to win, he has to keep the fight standing, and he has to, again, outstrike Jalen Turner. I think Jalen Turner has multiple pathways to victory in this one. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's a fight that probably goes the distance, because I don't think, again, even if Jalen Turner is able to get those takedowns, I don't think Jalen Turner ultimately is going to get that sub. But I do think Jalen Turner does beat Ignacio Bahamondes here. I'm not going to say it's a levels fight, because I think these guys are very close. I think it's going to be a very close fight, probably 2-1 for Jalen Turner. But I do think Jalen Turner is just better. Again, 14-8 record, but sure. Again, we just listed off 4 of his losses, and then prior to that, losses to Vicente Luque and Matt Frivola very early in his UFC run. He's just fought some very tough guys. He hasn't, his best win is, either definitely King Green. Bobby Green's his best win, but still, Jalen Turner, we just mentioned it again, could easily have been 4-0 in his last 4. If he gets the decisions in the Gamrot and Hooker fights, and if he follows up with some strikes after knocking down Renato Moicano, Jalen Turner's 4-0 in his last 4 fights. And guys, this is going to sound crazy, but he probably would have been in the spot against Beneil Dariush, potentially at UFC 311 in Inglewood. And with Tsuruya pulling out, Jalen Turner could have been fighting Islam Makhachev for the title. Now, would Jalen Turner have beaten Islam Makhachev? Hell no. The fight would have gone the same exact way Makhachev versus Moicano went. But still, that's just how different things could have ended up for Jalen Turner if some things just could have gone his way, right? I'm taking Turner beating Ignacio Bahamondes. Again, I think there's multiple ways Jalen Turner can win this fight. There's one way Ignacio Bahamondes can win this fight, and that's by outstriking Jalen Turner. So again, I feel better about Turner in this one because of the threat of the wrestling, and I don't think he's far off Ignacio Bahamondes on the feet as well. I think Turner can easily win a striking fight. So again, there's multiple ways the Tarantula can win. Bahamondes can just strike and win. So give me Jalen Turner on the main card to beat Ignacio Bahamondes, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. We go on to the co-main event. It is a rematch between Justin the Highlight Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. Likely a #1 contenders fight for Justin Gaethje. If he wins, they will likely give him Islam Makhachev next, with the rest of the lightweight division kind of sorting itself out. I expect, honestly, Tsuruya and Topuria, and I expect probably Holloway versus Poirier. Or they could do Holloway, Tsuruya, and Poirier versus Topuria, which honestly, probably what they should do. So that leaves nothing for the champion Islam Makhachev. Islam called out Gaethje. It's a fight Gaethje's been wanting, obviously. We kind of know who's going to win that fight, but I think ultimately that's next if Gaethje can get past Fiziev for the second time. So, again, I think there has been question about why would Gaethje take Fiziev, right? Because he's already beat him before. Fiziev's coming off back-to-back losses. It is a dangerous fight for the circumstance, but it's Gaethje getting a title shot regardless if he wins. He's doing the UFC another favor. He did the UFC a favor for UFC 300. He could have sat out, not fought Max Holloway, still gotten the shot at the World Championship like Dustin Poirier ended up getting instead of Gaethje, but instead, no, Gaethje saved the card, gave the UFC arguably their biggest moment in history with the Holloway knockout. Again, save them there, save them again this card, obviously. He could have waited for Dan Hooker, but no, he said, all right, I'm going to take on the next best guy, and he gets Rafael Fiziev. It's the same type of matchup for Gaethje. Fiziev's a good striker. I'd argue he's potentially a better striker than Dan Hooker. Again, I always say about Fiziev, he trains in Phuket, Thailand. He's the coach. He's a coach at Tiger Muay Thai. You know how good at Muay Thai and all around kickboxing you have to be a coach over there in Phuket, Thailand? That's a big deal. Rafael Fiziev is a good kickboxer and a good Muay Thai fighter. That is apparent, obviously. But he's already lost this to Justin Gaethje. Now, I would have liked this to be a 5-round fight. It's only a 3-round fight. But it's Fiziev on short notice. And what are the circumstances Fiziev is taking this fight in? By the way, Fiziev is not a 5-round fighter. He gasses very easily. Justin Gaethje, by the way, is going to dominate this 3rd round. I feel very good about that. Anyways, but what's the problem with Rafael Fiziev? It's just that he's coming off the blown knee. He fights Mateusz Gamrot. He blows his knee out in that fight. Gamrot ends up winning the fight by injury by 2nd round TKO. He hasn't fought since. This is a guy who hasn't fought since September of 2023, right? I mean, it's just been a while, and now he's immediately getting inserted into a co-main event spot against Justin Gaethje, a guy that he just lost to 2 fights ago. Again, Fiziev hasn't won a fight since that initial Gaethje loss. I thought Gaethje won the first fight. It was a good fight. I kind of think Gaethje does the same exact thing. Again, I would have liked to see us be 5 rounds, because I think Gaethje easily wins a 5-round fight against Rafael Fiziev. In a 3-round fight, I think Gaethje wins a decision. I think Gaethje wins all 3 rounds, if I'm being honest. I think he does. I just don't know what Fiziev's going to be coming off this injury. Normally, I'd say, okay, Fiziev gets off to a fast start, but he hasn't fought in about a year and a half. And he doesn't get better as the fight goes on. Again, Fiziev's best is early. He tires at the end of fights, and that was pretty apparent in the first matchup that Gaethje and him had in London, or Manchester, wherever the first fight, I think it was in London. I think Gaethje wins a decision. I think he does. I think he wins a fun decision, but I think every round is ultimately won by Justin Gaethje. I don't know what Fiziev we're going to get here. I don't think Gaethje's automatically just going to be washed after the Max Holloway fight. Again, that fight changes if he doesn't get his nose broken at the end of the first round. That's what ultimately altered the fight, And I think people forget in that fight, Gaethje arguably won rounds 3 and 4 in that fight. 3 and 4 in that fight. Arguably, Justin Gaethje won those 2 rounds. Now, he wasn't winning the 5th, right? He was going to lose anyway if Holloway didn't knock him out. But arguably, you could make the case that Justin Gaethje was tied going into the 5th round. The 3rd round's close. I thought Gaethje won the 4th. But the 3rd round, again, I wouldn't be mad if you had Holloway. Again, I think that's just something people forget, though. I think that goes forgotten a lot. Max Holloway's better than Rafael Fiziev. He is, just be honest. I think Fiziev's good, but what Fiziev are we going to get? Coming off the injury, he hasn't fought since September of 2023, and he hasn't won a fight since the first Gaethje fight. Fiziev's last win, guys, is over Rafael dos Anjos in 2022. That's 2.5 years ago at this point. It's been that long since he's won a fight. I think Gaethje should be able to get him. As long as he doesn't get caught, he should be fine. But I mean, again, I went over that example earlier about Bobby Green against Fiziev, right? I mean, Bobby Green went the distance against Fiziev and arguably beat Fiziev. I think Fiziev's good, but he's hittable. He's a good striker. But again, if you're able to eat what he throws at you, you should be fine. So again, I'm taking the highlight reel. Give me the highlight, Justin Gaethje, the human highlight reel, whatever you want to call him. Give me Justin Gaethje go out here and win this decision. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think Gaethje gets the better of these striking exchanges. I think Justin Gaethje punches his ticket to another UFC title fight. Again, Gaethje, I think has said it. I'm pretty sure this is his thing right now. Gaethje's fighting until he loses. Once he loses another fight, he's done. So potentially this could be Gaethje's last fight. But ultimately, I think Gaethje's going to get that one last crack at the title like Dustin Poirier did against Islam Makhachev, let's say, August. I think Justin Gaethje probably gets another title shot. August, maybe October. Probably October in Abu Dhabi. Still, give me Justin Gaethje to beat Rafael Fiziev. He will get it done by unanimous decision. As we go on to the main event for the light heavyweight championship of the world, the champion, Alex Poatan Pereira, takes on Magomed Ankalaev. The UFC is praying Alex Pereira wins, and I think, I'll be honest with you, everyone is hoping Alex Pereira beats Magomed Ankalaev. You know, again, this is not going to influence the pick at all, because I'm going to tell you what the pick is going to be in a second, but you know how much of a downgrade this is for the UFC if Ankalaev wins? Sure, they'll get their Ankalaev-Pereira rematch probably in, at the end of the summer, sure. But just, you take away the biggest star in the sport right now and replace him with Magomed Ankalaev, who's arguably, guys, the most boring fighter to come out of Makhachev. I'm not joking. Most boring good fighter. I thought Umar had an undeserved title fight, but, I thought I don't think Umar is as boring as Ankalaev is. I'm never going to say Islam and Khabib are boring. There's not. But Ankalaev is the most boring high-level Makhachev/Dagestani fighter ever. He just is. He's not fun to watch. He hits hard, but here's the thing, guys. He's not going to try to hit Alex Pereira. He's already said it. He's not. And again, good for Magomed Ankalaev. He shouldn't fight stupid like Jamal Hill and Khalil Rountree wasn't going to take down Pereira. But like Jamal Hill and hell, even Prohashka not trying to take down Pereira. Magomed knows what he's going to do in this fight. He's going to try to take Pereira down. It's apparent, right? But Ankalaev, yes, he does, again, lay in prey sometimes, but at the same time, Magomed Ankalaev hasn't really gone to his wrestling much recently. He hasn't shot a takedown in his last 3 fights. And I think the Jan Blachowicz fight is really where we can compare this Pereira-Ankalaev fight to. Last time Ankalaev got a title shot, UFC 282, December of 22 as well. Ankalaev, Blachowicz goes to a draw. I thought it was a draw watching it live. I either thought it was a draw or Ankalaev wins, but I wasn't mad at the draw at all, right? Where did Blachowicz see all of his success? Leg kicks. What does Pereira do more than anybody else? Leg kicks. That's going to eat away at Ankalaev. Sure, I think Ankalaev might be able to find a way to takedowns, but if he's not able to sub Pereira, Pereira's leg kicks should do so much damage. And for as much as it seems like, Pereira's not training, he's doing this crap with Nina drama, and he's literally everywhere in the media. He was at a Drake concert in Australia a couple weeks ago. Pereira's training. You know Glover Teixeira's got him training, right? You know that this camp in Danbury, Connecticut knows that the only chance Ankalaev has of beating Pereira is through wrestling him. And if Pereira can keep him on the feet, it should be light work. Yes, Ankalaev can strike. He knocked out Johnny Walker, but guys, there's levels to this. Like, again, Jamal Hill, I don't know if Jamal Hill's a better striker than Ankalaev. Yuri Prohashka and Khalil Rountree are better strikers than Magomed Ankalaev. They just are. Again, Ankalaev, what makes Ankalaev a complete fighter is his wrestling and, again, is the sambo, obviously. But if Pereira's just able to find a way to keep Ankalaev from wrestling him, I think Pereira should be able to win. Pereira just needs a couple stuffed takedowns, and you gotta think he knows it's coming. And again, Ankalaev is so heavy on that front leg, and that's where Blachowicz chewed him up, was that front leg. That Ankalaev was so heavy on, and that's ultimately how Blachowicz got that fight to being a draw. I think Poatan does the same exact thing. Give me Alex Pereira by second round TKO, second round knockout. I think Ankalaev, again, he will try to take Pereira down, and I think he'll be successful at one point. I think, honestly, I'll say the first round is going to end with Pereira on his back and with Ankalaev, again, trying to finish him. I think, again, every round starts in the feet. I think Pereira finds a way to stuff one takedown, and I think, again, he chops the legs, and I think he's going to catch Ankalaev coming in. I think he's going to. I think he's going to catch him with a hook. The UFC wants it. Everyone needs it. I mean, we can't have Ankalaev win the belt. But honestly, again, this pick is, definitely based around skill. It's just all a matter of if Pereira can stuff a takedown. If Ankalaev hadn't had so much trouble in the Blachowicz fight dealing with the leg kicks and just the striking game as a whole of Blachowicz, I would probably pick Ankalaev here. But that fight does stick out. It does. And what has he done since? Well, he knocked out Johnny Walker and he won a boring decision against Rakic. And I get it. Ankalaev was trying to show, hey, I can strike, because that's when Ankalaev was still trying to play the game with Pereira, like, hey, that, you know, I'm going to go and strike with you. I'm going to do exactly what Jamal Hill did and Roundtree and Proashka, but I'm just going to beat you this time. Ankalaev's not playing any games. I mean, I think he's already said that, yes, he's going to go in there and wrestle Pereira. I think Pereira, again, is going to be fine. I think he'll stuff those takedowns. And again, I do think Pereira eventually will catch Magomed Ankalaev. So where does that lead Pereira next? Well, it's got to be heavyweight. What else is there at light heavyweight now other than Ankalaev? This was always the test that we were kind of avoiding with Pereira. I do think there is a matchup for him, because if we're waiting for Jones and Aspinall, the next matchup in the light heavyweight division is undoubtedly the winner of Jan Blachowicz and Carl Solberg. Unfortunately, that's not a fun fight, but that's what it is. Blachowicz is coming off a controversial split decision loss to Pereira, and Carl Solberg is a good kickboxer from CKB who's 11-1 with only one loss in the UFC to Kennedy and Zijiku. That's obviously the next fight. They're fighting in a co-main event in London, England on March 22nd. The co-main, obviously, to Leon Edwards and Sean Brady. That's actually very obviously the next fight for Pereira. If Pereira loses, obviously, it'll be the rematch of them and Ankalaev, but yeah. If Pereira wins, Blachowicz versus Olberg turns into a number one contenders fight. I've been trying to say and tell you guys for the last year, they're setting up Olberg with the matchmaking and the way, again, Olberg fights. They're setting him up for a matchup with Pereira, where he will eventually get chinned, but that's kind of what they've been doing with Olberg, I've thought. And yes, Olberg finds himself now one win away from the belt against a 43-year-old Jan Blachowicz. But maybe Blachowicz beats him and gets his next shot at the belt. I don't know. But again, I think that's going to be next fight. I guess, yes, it'll be Olberg versus Pereira next for the World Championship. Probably in their return to Australia. Do they have another? They don't have another Australia this year. Probably not. So they'll just probably do an international fight. Oh no, he's fighting in March. Olberg is October-ish, September. Probably the September U.S. card, wherever the hell that is. I think it's in Vegas. So yeah, give me Alex Pereira to beat Magomed Ankalaev. Leg kicks are key, and again, Pereira is going to outstrike him and knock him out. He's just got to be able to stuff a takedown. I think he does it. Shama, Alex Pereira survives and knocks out Magomed Ankalaev in the second round to retain the World Championship. So folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC 13 predictions here with our first video on Greedo Plays MMA. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy. Make sure to subscribe as well as we try to grow this channel, obviously, as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back again for more MMA content probably during the week and obviously next week's UFC card as well, which is... Are we back in the Apex? We are. Oh, my God. Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze in the Apex. Really? We'll get to that next week. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.